All right, so we added some jobs. Love to hear some thoughts on this. 130,000 jobs.
Yeah, what do you guys think about this? Because my perspective with the numbers, you look at it and okay, the vast majority, I think it's 70 or 80,000 are just healthcare jobs. So you back that number down, and you're looking at 50,000, and then how much of that is real or not? Because we know next month they'll probably update this number because that's usually what they do. And there seems to be a lot of negative sentiment. What I saw on CNBC is the analyst expectations were half of this. So if you have ADP and a whole bunch of other organizations saying, hey, wait, it's really only half this, and the feds come out and say, yeah, here's our exciting, wonderful number, I'm not terribly excited about it, but maybe that's me being a pessimist, I guess. What are your thoughts?
Simon Evans. Simon, good to see you, bud.
You too. Yeah, Frank, I agree with you. I wonder what is the purpose of the BLS numbers these days? Is it really just to keep Wall Street going up? Because every cycle it goes back down again. I go back to I remember we talked about this with was it Andrew Flowers thing about the absence of a qualitative aspect to these numbers. When it is all, all healthcare and probably largely at the lower end of the healthcare sector versus the huge number of folks, that probably are more like ourselves in terms of levels of experience and type of work that are looking. There's a kind of that disconnect, and I find it amazes me how that's still at the mainstream level of media coverage or anything like that. It's just not touched. Yeah. And they go on the top line number. It's a great month. It's a terrible month. Turns into a terrible month after it was a great month. It's like, this is meaningless.
Right on. Right on. I couldn't agree more. Andrew, welcome to the jungle. A little jungle. It's more like a garden.
Appreciate that, David. So I thought when I read the report, I wasn't surprised, and then the economists weren't surprised either, but we had actually a readjustment of 500,000 down for the 2025 calendar year. And so I think that was really the headline that I picked up, was not, we rose 130,000. Okay, I get non-agriculture and the numbers go up and down. And I think that there was, like I said, there was an expectation that they were going to re-report 2025, but I'm curious as to why that has been buried in the news. Yeah. So we just talked about this idea of a spring thaw or the hiring freeze, and the Department of Labor says we lost 500,000 and we were off. And so maybe I'm a little discouraged by the fact that the media is leading a dialogue like this, but then you have people who are living it every day who look at that and say, wait a minute, this report, and to the previous, you can't keep on saying 130,000 up and then the next month say, well, we were wrong 200,000, or we were wrong last year 500,000. It's like a point where it is just a little bit, I don't know, a barometer.
Well, you can, Andrew, right? If the masses only hear the first 10 words. Look, we're up this month. Look, we're up this month. Forget what happened in the past. We're only looking forward. Forget about the negative, and I think we're seeing some of that.
Right on. Yeah. Ronnie, what do you got? Good to see you.
Good to see you too, David. No, it's crazy. It's like 130,000 up, and then all of a sudden it's like, well, what about the people who have fallen off of those ranks, right? Because they only keep track of the people who have been looking for a job for X amount of time. And what about the people who have been out for a year and a half or 2 years? They're no longer counted in those numbers of unemployment. And that's the false narrative that's being kind of pushed to the world, because it's like they're white collar workers. There are lots of them who have been out of work for a substantial amount of time, and they're no longer counted.
Right. So true.
Yeah, but I mean, that's been the case the whole time, guys. So you have the U6 number, the U8 numbers. We've been arguing about this for 25 years. Mm-hmm. This has more to do with the stock market and the interest rates. Like that was the big thing. We want to have a strong growth or weak growth, so they lower interest rates. Job market's too high, job market's high, wage inflation. I mean, it's being played at a game that's much different than TA. So I mean, that's half the problem. And then who you're going to blame, be less director led. It's very little to do with reality. It never has been. It's always been about juicing markets or feeling good or talking down the economy or false positives.
Up and dump, yes.
Couldn't agree more.
I mean,
Couldn't
absolutely.
agree more.
Why does anyone listen to any CEO or government speaker? They're
Yeah. I almost think we should almost just disregard. It used to be the go-to every Thursday morning and then Friday morning, first Friday of the month. I mean, I get to when I get to. I'm aligned, Jim. Aaron Lombardi, and then we'll jump into some news. Nope. Did we lose Aaron?
I think she was trying to come off mute.
Okay, we'll get
I'm
that.
off mute. I'm off mute.
There you go.
Okay. Hi, everybody. Happy Tuesday. It's interesting because some of you know on the call, I've been working in healthcare for 10 years, and it's job security, right? But then you see an article like this, and I'm scratching my own head. Like, what are they talking about? Because we have the great resignation in healthcare happening. Okay. But then we also have my area of expertise is radiology. Like one of the local community colleges has 400 students waiting to enroll in radiology. So I think you always got to look at these reports with half glass full, half glass empty, however you want to go about it. There's two sides to, each coin, and there's always going to be one industry that's going to be like hotter than the other. But healthcare is, I don't know, because I also think there's just wonkiness in healthcare altogether, which gives me, again, job security. So, yeah.
Good for you. Thanks, Aaron. That's great. All right, Jeff. Yeah. Okay. So let's get into this a little bit. Let's jump right in. We're going to break these down. So I don't want to linger here long. And we've got a special guest to talk about an important one that everyone's talking about. But the common theme in all these headlines, Frank, is AI, not going away anytime soon. And it's getting to the point where it's not really about AI anymore. We're in AI. It's more about the singularity or what, the next gen or Eagle Eye or Terminate. I don't know where this is all going is what this is about. But before we kind of open up that whole mosh pit of ideas, let's go to the Eightfold story, Jeff, because I know we've got Heather here, and we've got a legal counsel here to weigh in on this. This is hot off the press, sort of. We haven't had a chance to unpack it here, and we haven't touched it too much because everyone is. This is just like when we when we touched on the Workday thing 18 months ago, it felt fresh. And this is a whole new level of awareness. And this is, to me, Frank, really, and Heather as well, I'd love to have your thoughts on this. To me, this is interesting because it's bringing in the Fair Credit Reporting Act. Like, that's an interesting little spin on this. And it seems to hold water. They're using public data without permission, and they're scoring and ranking candidates, and they're getting caught. They're being accused of using that data to stack rank candidates, and that is resulting in some discriminatory practices. So, Heather, are you with us? Jeff said you were here somewhere, and I just want to introduce you to the group. Oh, there you are. Yeah, if you could just introduce yourself a little bit. So great. Thank you so much. Heather's an attorney. She's all over this. I cold called her and said, Heather, you don't know me, but I'd love to have you jump into the mosh pit here with a bunch of TA professionals that are looking for answers. So please introduce yourself and weigh in.
Well, I'm delighted to see a bunch of friends here. Andrew and Jim and Frank are right on top of my thing, and I think my husband John Sumser is here as well, and we didn't even know we were both gonna be participating. But so the AI suit is based on the Fair Credit Reporting Act because Eightfold collects data, and it doesn't really matter how you collect it or whether it's private or public data. But if you collect data and sell it to an employer to use as part of a background or character or any sort of evaluation as part of the hiring process, the Fair Credit Reporting Act applies, and it's it's not a huge compliance issue because it just requires that you let people know in a standalone notice that you're going to be relying on data from third parties and ask for their permission, and they're entitled to a copy of it.
Fascinating.
Yeah. So, it's just like the authorizations you sign for a background check or a credit check if you're applying for a loan. It's the same law, same requirements, but it's very broad in that any time a third party gathers data for an employer and the employer pays them for it, it applies.
Do you think they will successfully, and people raise your hands if you have questions for Heather, if you just want to discuss this amongst ourselves, this is a good one. Do you think this is winnable? Do you think they'll be able to successfully associate those, that credit logic, approach to hiring? It seems like a novel way to attack discrimination.
I've been waiting for this for a really long time.
Yeah, Heather, I have a question for you on this.
Sure.
That when organizations do something like this or goofy, and one point they'll have to disclose, or if the candidate requests, hey, I want to see what you have, you have to disclose it or you have to give it to them. Part of the snarkiness side of me wants to help people create a form, and we just bury Eightfold with so many of these requests that the legal team's going to say, hey, this is ridiculous. Let's find a new approach here. I mean, is that something that one of these law firms is going to figure out how to do to straighten this mess out? Because this is a horrible experience.
Well, I mean, I think employers are going to start treating it like background checks, which is, they will wait until an offer is made, and instead of using it earlier on in the process, if the process itself is burdensome for either the vendor or the employer. But my concern for employers is that they're the ones making the decision. They're ultimately on the hook if there's a problem. They weren't sued in this particular case, but they're always going to have the evidence, about the decision making and how many candidates were considered and what that process looked like. And but for a Fair Credit Reporting Act violation, it's a statutory fine. And so the whole viability of the lawsuit depends on getting the class approved, which I think they will. And then if I'm Eightfold, I'm going to settle it as quickly as I possibly can, because you don't want a bunch of precedential legal decisions out there at this point until the law has a chance to catch up a little bit.
Makes sense. Simon, you want to jump in?
Yeah.
I mean, I used to, back in the day, run recruiting for a large retail bank. And we were very, very concerned about FCRA from a background check point of view because of putting people with access to people's accounts and stuff of that nature. And it was always very important that we could justify our thinking behind how we were using the credit information and be able to do it in that fashion and explain that as part of the BI. I don't know how companies explain this to people and in a way that isn't prejudicial. Just because I want to look at your stuff, I mean, it just strikes me as really not only unsavory, but also really hard to justify the merit behind it. It's a little bit easier when you're saying, hey, I'm checking this because you're going to be handling money.
I remember, it's funny, Simon, you mentioned that, because I now remember some debates 20 years ago, 18 years ago, about should we be looking at Facebook profiles as recruiters, and the room at the bar or the coffee break area would be divided. Of course we should. We have every right to go look and cross-reference their social media profile and their looks and their attitudes. And if I recall, there was some controversy about people getting kicked out of hiring processes because of particular findings in their social media sites. It's kind of interesting.
Ronnie, people seeing, photographs holding a beer.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't disagree with anything that any of you have said, but I think the underpinning here will be how far they peel back the onion when it comes to digging into Eightfold, because the way Eightfold is designed is they feel that they can pull anything and everything to kind of make a candidate profile and then stack rank them to the top, right? But those judgment calls of what good looks like, and to Simon, what Simon was talking about is, somebody is making a prejudicial kind of, editorial comment about what good looks like.
Well,
And,
the question I have, Ronnie, is how's that different than OpenAI or Chat GPT? I mean, where does it end?
Exactly, right. But if you look at the algorithms that sit behind Eightfold's technology, it would probably make your hair like curl.
Yeah, right on.
Yeah.
Real quickly, Tom, and then we'll let Heather get out of here if she can escape.
Yeah. Well, I'm sort of looking at it the way that an entrepreneur might, instead of like, what are the risks and the problems, but like, what are the opportunities? I don't think Eightfold's in trouble here for using AI to try to create inferences and understanding. They're getting in trouble because they're not giving the person whose data is being used visibility and the ability to correct the record.
Right.
Who's going to give the job seeker that transparency and the ability to correct the record? If I had a profile that I could understand was being used in the judgments that are being made by the Eightfolds of the world, well, I could go correct it, and then nobody would be in trouble anymore. So who's the business that's best positioned to create that? And like a LinkedIn whose data is being used for most of these inferences anyway is like very well positioned. It doesn't necessarily go into all worker segments of the world in terms of people that aren't using LinkedIn, but I think there's a great opportunity for a TransUnion business to create a profile that then becomes what is the basis for tools to make inferences and judgments and decisions, and then everything becomes sort of above board rather than the shadow profiles that are the way that Eightfold's working right now.
That is a great take from my POV. That is spot on, and I think there's a huge opportunity. We think blockchain could play a role in that. I don't want to dive into that today. There'll be more later. But immutable assets become interesting, and current and like credential. A final system of record on credentials seems like what you're talking about, Tom. And I think that's absolutely essential. All right, Heather, thank you so much. You're welcome to stick around. We're going to race through the news. We've unpacked Eightfold. If you're willing to come back, this won't be the last time. So thank you so much.
Anytime.
Good to
Have
see
a
you,
great
Heather.
day, everyone.
Thank you, Heather. Thank you so much for your time. That was great. All right, Jeff, we can go. Let's move on to the next headline. All right, you guys probably saw this. This is fun. This is hiring. This is real hiring. This is bold, in my opinion. The old stodgy IBM coming to the rescue of a conversation about whether to hire entry level at all, and they're saying you're not understanding. I've been waiting for this, Frank. Someone had to move first. Someone had to blink. I've said this for years. Like one time, eventually one of these giants is going to blink and go the other way. Going to swim upstream and say, no, you guys are missing the obvious. We're going to go buy low and use later high. We're going to hire tens of thousands of entry level coders. They're hiring developers, right? And while everyone else is laying them off. So I think this is kind of an interesting gambit on their part at a time when Gen Z is learning how to sweat pipes.
Absolutely. Oh, and I think I'd love to peel this back a little bit more. Where are they looking? Are they just looking in Southeast Asia? Are they going to do this as a worldwide effort, which I really hope so? That would be really making a statement. And if IBM's doing it, how many other organizations that just lack some leadership are just going to follow the leader and do this? And we've seen that with some of the layoffs, and it's not a layoff anymore; it's a RIF, whatever. But now we're getting some bold statements of, hey, we're actually going to hire. And we're going
as a strategic, maneuver.
Absolutely. And then what goes along with that? Okay, they're new people. Who are the managers that know how to manage those new people? And then what learning are we going to bring in? So, I think it's a big boost for the people industry as a whole that they're making a statement like this. So I'm excited.
I've been through every single technology, event and evolution, and this blows them all away. Mm-hmm. Now, how you implement it in business is a whole different issue. Like literally when I was 24, I was walking into companies who had never seen a PC before in their lives and explaining to them the value, and having these guys going, well, son, I got this receptionist right there. I got that secretary. I'm never going to need that shit ever. Right. But then, my business then was helping them figure out how to implement it to give them an advantage.
Yep.
There are going to be integrators that, particularly young kids, like when I'm telling my kids who are 15, 18, 21 or 19, 21, and kids going to school, what should I do? What should I do? I'd be like,
AI research.
Learn all you can about AI, but learn more on how to implement them in companies, right? Because to your point, companies don't understand how to implement all that right now to get a competitive advantage. You got the head of Microsoft saying software is dead because everything's going to be customized to your unique utilization, right, or usage. Who's going to do it for them? Particularly small to medium-sized businesses. There are 33 million companies in this country. 30 million of them are solopreneurs, right? Single-person enterprises. There are only, there are millions of companies that have 1, 5, 10, 50, 100, 500 people that aren't going to have AI budgets, aren't going to have AI experts. This is where kids getting hired coming out of college are really going to have a unique opportunity. If you're spending your senior year in college right now, your senior year in high school, even whatever it is, your excess time, and you're learning the difference between Sora and Veo, and you're learning how to do all this video, you're learning how to customize a model so that then you can then walk into a company and say, I understand your business as a shoe company selling shoes at a retail store or selling shoes online. Let me show you how to benefit you. Yeah. That is every single job that's going to be available for kids coming out of school, because every single company needs that. There is nothing intuitive for a company to integrate AI. And that's what people don't understand.
Yeah, so that just tees up. We've been talking about, everyone's been talking about embracing AI. And we thought that clip kind of took it to another level. And I think he's right. I think he's spot on. I'd love to hear some thoughts, Frank, on this. But it's not about learning AI. We're all going to have AI in our lives. It'd be like, in some ways, like learning Google. But it's like implementing Google. Like learning how to use Google is very different than implementing Google Drive, Google Shared, all the functionality of Google. And what I think Cuban is suggesting is that's the level of learning, how to implement, how to make sense of all this. So you can go into someone that doesn't make sense of it, but may own their business and help them make sense of their AI stack that they may not even have.
Yeah. I'm hoping this is that magical year of getting past the AI hype to what can we actually do with it. This project I'm on right now, there's two clients that are merging together, and we have data in all kinds of places, plus in file cabinets, paper, whatever. And we had a pretty senior person say, well, can we have AI help with that? I'm like, how's AI going to help with the paper that's over there and the SharePoint file here? And at some point, a human's got to help get involved with this. But there's all this hype, the belief that AI just magically is going to do some of this. And I just shake my head of, oh my goodness. And so I'm really hoping that this year will be that year where we can get to applying some of this. And I think Cuban's right that we need people that know how to implement this in small and large organizations. I mean, large organizations are going to resource the heck out of this and invent their way through it. But the smaller organizations are not going to be able to do it. Let's see what happens.
I suspect just about every organization could use a TA expert in how to implement AI. And I've been saying this for a year with this group, that we need to own our future. We need to own the business outcomes. We need to drive the business that we serve. And if AI is on their mind, we better be the subject matter expert on AI implementations, not just from a TA perspective, but from a talent procurement, all of it. How do we distribute work in our firms? And that's the expertise I think companies are looking for. Ken Roy.
Hey there, everyone. I think it's clearly very interesting, right? We've heard from a couple of different areas just in this clip alone, right? So people are saying, obviously, AI is going to take out jobs, right? Other people say, well, that's really just going to remove the manual labor, and people will move on to higher level roles, right? But we also know that in the market, based on prior disruption technology, that new roles will be invented, right? We don't even know the names of some of those roles yet as TA people, right? And I think if you look at the product companies that are sprinkling AI into some of their technology, right? That's like, I call that it's an add-on, right? It's not maybe purpose built from AI, right? It's hey, we can make this a little better. Let's sprinkle this on there. I think your point about, and Mark's about the integrators, right, is really important to the success of how those systems fit with other systems. You look at the entire HR stack, right? It's not just TA, right? There's an HRIS, there's a payroll system, there's benefits and other integration systems, there's background things. All these things, have to fit together, right? And so, does somebody come in and know one little tiny piece, but doesn't know how to implement it in concert with others across an entire enterprise, right? Because you have all these little pockets, right? Oh, finance needs to do this, right? Legal and quality and regulatory needs to do this, right? And TA needs to do that. So AI is just not one function, right? It's spreading across all areas of an enterprise and a business. Right. And so what are you going to do? Hire 12 or 50 different people, one for each function in one department? So I think there's a bigger discussion and there's a huge need. But you also look at the language models, right? And I believe today that with all the different AI agents available, right, they're being trained in different ways, right? And there's still a lot of concern around security, right? Are they looking at and listening and looking at things they shouldn't be looking at, right? And who knows that, right? Who's able to stop that? Is the IT team going to do that? Are they going to understand all that? So I think there's a huge, huge effort here in trying to understand the landscape of how it changes the dynamics of the workforce and the roles of people in all functions, not just, of course, TA, which is having a massive impact in some areas.
Right on, Ken. Great point. Andrew.
Real quickly, I put it in the link, but Ken was just talking about this. There's a study that was just released that talks about the intersection of the skills that you have, AI literacy that's needed, and how it will either grow or diminish within a particular occupation. So some are not susceptible and some are very vulnerable. And so it's a great read. I put it in there, but to give you an example, pipe fitters, dentists, occupational therapists have a different exposure than, say, recruiters or data scientists or radiology technicians, but it's a great read. So go ahead.
Awesome, Andrew. Thank you so much. We're up against the clock, guys. We're not. I mean, this is great. This is what you get. This is what we do when we have an open forum. We're not going to get to all our content. We'll take it as far as we can. We may go over a minute or so just to get through some of this. Jeff, you can go to the next slide while I'm blabbing. And we'll probably come back. I mean, we'll definitely come back to this one. I mean, I know you guys are tracking. Some of you at least the whole claw bot. Now called OpenClaw, kind of soap opera a little bit. But what's not a soap opera is the AI agency we're assigning to this thing. And for real, this is a really fascinating story that we will have to unpack in future episodes. Jeff, I'm not sure. Jeff Sabaka, do you want to jump in just real quick and just kind of touch on where this is going?
Yeah, sure. All right. So for those who do not know what OpenClaw is, it's a AI agent that just recently launched in November by Peter Steinberg out of the UK. OpenClaw is essentially an AI agent that runs directly on your personal device. Think of it as if it's like your personal assistant. We've talked in the previous months ago about what the future of AI agency would look like, but it seems to be the case that now it's here. It runs locally on your computer, so it has the same access to all your files and applications that you have. So what makes OpenClaw a little bit interesting is its ability to actually execute these actions on your behalf, because it's interacting with those apps, it's able to type, it's able to open files. Now it runs continuously in the background. A lot of people have it going around like 24/7, continuously running. And what it's doing is it's able to handle multi-step workflows beyond the typical prompt-based AI tools like ChatGPT or Perplexity. And what makes OpenClaw stand out a little bit is its memory component. So it is able to learn the user's behavior the more you're using it. And if you're using ChatGPT, we've all probably used it. The second you click new chat, it essentially forgets every command you previously gave it. That's not the case with OpenClaw. Now, it's causing a little bit of stir. It's gone viral a little bit here. But now the main issue here is security. Because you're giving agency to this open source platform called OpenClaw, you're giving access to all your sensitive information, whether that's credit cards, account login information, or what have you. So there's something called a prompt injection, which is essentially a cybersecurity attack where a nefarious party could send a malicious command to those apps by disguising them as a user input. That's something that's not really being talked about just yet, but that's going to be a big major concern as we adopt more AI agency here in the future. So there's going to be a lot of strong safeguards that need to be in place, as well as permissions and monitoring of these tools. But it's something to keep an eye on as we dive into more of the agentic world of AI and what it could mean for recruiting. I mean, people are booking flights with this thing. They're having it handle their calendars. You can have it set up directly to message you. So instead of going to ChatGPT, the bot would just essentially just text you, and you could have it. You could say a command to it to do, book my flight to Rio next month on the 3rd. You know where I like to sit already. I like to sit in first class or what have you, and it will do that for you. People are also using it to trade on Kalshi and Polymarket, which is fascinating and making some good returns on that. How long will that last? Nobody knows, but it's a very fascinating outcome, and it's all happening in real time. And you will hear a lot more about this as AI agency starts to take fold.
Skynet 1.0, according to Blair Stock, and he's probably right. I mean, if it can do, they're just testing this in these rather mundane transactions of scheduling and logistics and emails, but if it can do that masterfully, which it probably can, why can't it do other things? So, and when in doubt, and when Skynet needs a human, it can go rent one. So just when you need that last mile problem solved by a human to go push the button or whatever's needed from the human, the agents themselves can go out and rent as needed. And this is a real site, as you guys probably know. And then we'll probably start wrapping up here. Jeff, that was great. Sabaka, that was terrific. We'll come back, I'm sure, to that next month. And basically what we're seeing here is the build out of the early stages of what's being called singularity. But it's basically these things are going to have a life of their own. It's got a life of its own. Yes, it does. It can do things that right up until recently only humans could do. And it's reducing the work that they need humans to do to another app that can go procure the human element that's needed to fill out the stack. So great stuff. Frank, I think we're probably, oh yeah, the hiring. Oh, you got the poll. Oh my gosh, I can't get out of Dodge without the poll.
It's 62% for early spring thaw and 38% for hiring freeze.
Oh, that's great. So, I mean, look, these polls are nice because they're just little pulse checks. It's all this is about. Small sample size. But that's a great. So say that again. 62% said we're hiring.
62% are saying early spring thaw. Correct.
I mean, very small sample size, but that's an optimistic viewpoint, and I think that's probably a solid one and a great place to wrap up.